Careful, human, the foxwoman purred, tail brushing his arm. I hear better than you think, and I heard every word. If you enjoy human-alien slow-burn romances, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. The loading bay always smelled like cardboard dust, coolant, and cheap coffee. Pallets hummed along the conveyors in a lazy mechanical rhythm. Forklifts beeped somewhere out of sight, and the air shimmered with the distant heat of the docking clamps. It was the kind of place where hours blurred together into a steady grind of scan, lift, stack, repeat, which was exactly why he noticed her. Not because she was a vulpine, though the bright ember of her hair and those russet-furred ears stood out against the gray uniforms and metal walls, but because she laughed like this job was a joke only she understood. A quick, warm sound that cut through the monotony and made the other workers glance over, half annoyed and half curious. On Kai's third week at Stellarship Logistics, he knew 3 things for certain. 1. The handheld scanners were possessed. 2. His buddy Derek would find a way to make even a safety briefing sound like gossip. And 3. The foxwoman on Lane C had made eye contact with him exactly 5 times, smirked 4 of them, and he was in far more trouble than he wanted to admit. The morning shift had just started when Kai's scanner chirped an error at him for the 6th time. He glared down at the little display. "You're doing this on purpose." The scanner blinked its tiny red light as if offended. From the next lane over, a voice floated through the clatter of pallets. "If you start arguing with equipment, they'll put you on night shift, you know?" Kai looked up. She was leaning against a stack of sealed crates, one boot braced on the pallet, arms crossed. The orange of her hair flared around her shoulders like captured fire, tied back at the nape of her neck with a black band. 2 triangular ears, fur the same color, twitched atop her head, swiveling toward him with lazy interest. Her tail, thick, plush, and tipped in pale cream, curled and flicked behind her, restless as a thought. "Morning, Vesa," he said, trying for casual. She arched a brow. "That's all I get? I give you premium workplace advice and you just morning me?" He cracked a grin. "You also told me the vending machine coffee was an act of war, and I still drank it." Vesa's amber eyes widened in mock horror. "You survived that? I'm impressed, human. Truly. Your species is tougher than the orientation video said." He chuckled, some of the fatigue of the early shift sliding off his shoulders. They'd been doing this easy, ridiculous back and forth, since the day Derek had introduced them in the break room. Vesa had sized Kai up with a slow, considering glance, ears flicking, then asked if all humans were that tall, or if he'd been specially grown for high shelves. Derek had nearly choked on his sandwich. "Scanner's haunted," Kai said now, tapping the device against his palm. "Says this crate is both 12 kilos and 200. Kind of a spread. Maybe it's weighing your ego with it." Vesa pushed off the pallet and sauntered closer, tail swaying. The warehouse lights painted a faint sheen over the sleek fur on her ears, catching tiny glints of gold in her hair. "Let me see." She took the scanner from his hand, fingers brushing his knuckles in the exchange. It was an innocent contact, nothing anyone could complain about, but heat still prickled up his arm. She pretended not to notice, brows knitting as she tilted the device. "You didn't clear the last entry," she said. "See?" Her shoulder bumped his as she leaned closer, the faint scent of citrus and metal tools hanging around her. "You humans and your big thumbs." "My thumbs are proportionate," he protested. "I'm just cursed." "With clumsiness?" "With bad tech," he said, "and co-workers who bully me." "Oh." Vesa thumped the scanner lightly against his chest, a teasing little tap. "You like it?" He did. more than he was ready to say out loud to anyone, especially the woman who could outlift half the crew and outtalk the rest. A forklift rumbled past at the end of the aisle, the driver raising a hand in greeting. Vesa stepped back, checking the crate labels with a quick glance that took everything in at once. "Dock 3, she said. "You're with me this run." Kai looked at his wristband. "I'm assigned to Dock 1 today." "Yeah, well." She flashed him a mischievous grin. "Dock 1 is boring and Dock 3 has me. Come on, hero, grab the pallet jack." There it was again. That effortless assumption that he'd fall into step with her, that he was included in whatever minor rebellion she'd decided on. He pretended to sigh, but his feet were already moving. "You know," he said, guiding the manual jack into position, "I heard Vulpines are sticklers for following assigned routes." "You heard wrong." She braced her hands on her hips as he pumped the handle, tail flicking. "We're sticklers for efficiency. Dock 3's bay door is 3 minutes closer to the break room." "Ah," he said, enlightened self-interest. "Got it." She winked. "Now you're learning." They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes, the squeak of the pallet wheels and the distant whine of machinery filling in the gaps. Kai stole glances when he thought she wouldn't notice, the way her ears tracked sounds across the warehouse, the easy strength in her arms as she steadied the load, the little crease that appeared between her brows when she was thinking hard about something as simple as crate positioning. There was a lightness around her that didn't match the gray concrete and metal racks. Even when she was quiet, it clung to her like a second aura. Playful, alert, ready to spring into a joke or a story at any moment. It made the 12-hour shifts feel almost survivable. Derek said that was standard Vulpine behavior. "They're like if caffeine and mischief had a baby," he'd told Kai, chewing on a protein bar. "Don't get attached." "Why not?" "Because they run circles around you, that's why." Derek had pointed the bar at him, serious for exactly 3 seconds. "Trust me, I dated one in trade school. I'm still paying off the emotional debt." Kai hadn't answered that. He didn't have a lot of practice with complicated relationships. Most of his life had been work, rent, and the occasional night out with friends. Vesa was the first person in a long time who made his week measurably better just by existing in the same building. Not that he planned to do anything about it. They were co-workers, different species, and he was absolutely not going to be the cliché human who lost his head over a fox girl with a sharp smile and a sharper tongue. He reminded himself of that as they rolled the pallet toward Dock 3. "So," Vesa said, breaking the quiet. "Weekend plans, Kai?" "Survive," he said. "Maybe do laundry. Got wild goals." "No secret double life?" she asked. "No underground fight club? No illegal racing and delivery trucks?" "Can't afford the entry fees," he smirked. "You?" She pretended to think very hard. "Sleep. Eat something not in vacuum packaging. Annoy my little brother on video call. Possibly train for my highly dangerous side career as a warehouse acrobat." "Acrobat, huh?" "Mm-hmm." She hopped lightly onto the side of the pallet, riding it as he pulled, arms wide for balance. "Observe. Grace." The pallet jerked over a crack in the floor. She wobbled, laughed, then hopped down again, landing beside him with a flourish. 10 out of 10, he said. Stuck the landing. "You're biased," she replied. "Absolutely." Her ears twitched. She gave him a quick, sideways look, as if weighing that single word and all the ways it might mean more. Then she smiled, easy and bright, and the moment slid into the background like a box pushed onto a shelf. They reached Dock 3, dropped the pallet in the staging area, and began breaking it down into smaller loads. The bay doors were open here, letting in a wash of cold air from the shipyard outside. Containers loomed in stacked rows, their painted logos dulled by distance and grime. Vesa bent to pry open a crate latch, muscles flexing in her forearms. "Hey, Kai." "Yeah?" "You ever wonder how many planets these boxes see before they end up in somebody's kitchen or garage or whatever?" He set a box on the scale. "Pretty sure most of them go straight to corporate storage, never to be seen again." "That's depressing." "That's logistics." She snorted. "Leave it to a human to make a philosophical question about warehouse inventory. Hey, you're the one who brought up crate existentialism." Another worker pushed a cart past them, nodding hello. The day moved on, a steady churn of boxes, labels, and data pings. But something under the banter was humming now, a tension Kai could feel when Vesa lingered a second too long at his side, or when her tail swayed close enough to brush his leg before flicking away. He told himself he was imagining it. Then came the box. It was near the end of the first half of their shift, the kind of exhausted stretch where every crate seems heavier just on principle. A tall stack had been left half-sorted near the aisle, labels demanding priority delivery. Vesa eyed the top one, a bulky container balanced just above her shoulder level, and clicked her tongue. "Whoever stacked this hates spinal health," she muttered. Kai glanced over. "I'll grab it." "I've got it," she said, waving him off. "What, you think I'm fragile?" "Never said that." "Mm-hmm." She stepped in close to the stack, braced her feet, and bent at the waist to get her hands under the crate. It wasn't intentional. He knew it wasn't because she was focused on not dropping the thing. But the movement left him with a suddenly unobstructed view of the way her uniform pants hugged her, tail lifted for balance. Kai's brain shorted out for a second. He swallowed, heat rushing up the back of his neck. It was stupid. It was absolutely categorically stupid. But he was still 20-something, very alive, and currently being ambushed by an angle of his co-worker he had never anticipated encountering at 10:23 a.m. on a weekday. "Wow," Vesa grunted playfully as she started to lift. "Sure is nice that I have to do this all by myself. Must be because the mighty human is actually not that strong." The crate rose, her muscles working under the fabric, tail swishing to counterbalance the weight. She had no idea what she was presenting. The casual, unself-conscious confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about who was looking. Kai's mouth moved before his restraint caught up. "And miss this view?" he muttered under his breath. It was barely more than a whisper. A reflexive thought leaked into sound. The conveyor belts, the distant forklift beep, the chatter from other aisles, all of it swallowed his words by the time they left his lips. At least, he thought they did. Vesa froze. The crate settled back onto the stack with a soft thump. She straightened slowly, ears swiveling toward him with laser precision. For a heartbeat, Kai considered the possibility that he might simply evaporate into thin air. Then she turned. Her expression was pure, exaggerated offense, eyes wide, mouth parted in a scandalized gasp. "Excuse me?" His heart tried to escape through his ribs. What?" Amber eyes narrowed, sharp as a fox's on a rabbit. Then the corner of her mouth curled, her entire demeanor melting into something sly and amused, like a cat that had just found a string to pull. "Careful, human," Vesa purred, voice low enough that only he could hear over the warehouse noise. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint patterning of lighter fur at the edges of her ears. "I hear better than you think." The words landed somewhere between a warning and an invitation. Heat flared across his face. There was no hiding the blush, not at this distance. Sorry, I didn't mean to get caught?" she asked, eyes dancing. He forced a crooked smile. "I guess you Vulpines are full of surprises, huh?" She moved past him with unhurried grace, brushing his arm as she went. The contact was feather-light, but the soft drag of fur from her tail as it slid along his sleeve was unmistakable, sending a shiver crackling over his skin. "More than you can imagine," she murmured. Then she was gone, tail swaying behind her as she headed toward the loading bay with a smaller crate in her arms, leaving Kai rooted to the floor like someone had bolted his boots down. From across the aisle, a strangled sound reached his ears. He looked up to see Derek standing behind a pallet, eyes wide, mouth forming a perfect O. When their gazes met, Derek pointed dramatically at Vessa's retreating figure, then at Kai, then mimed his own head exploding. Kai covered his face with one hand. "Oh my God," he mouthed. Derek mouthed back, enunciating each word like an accusation. "You are so dead." Somewhere in the back of his mind, Kai realized the shift had just gotten a lot more complicated. Kai escaped to the break room the moment their rotation hit. His pulse had finally settled somewhere below impending heart failure. But the moment he walked in and saw Derek lounging at the table with a pretzel bag, that fragile calm shattered. Derek pointed at him without preamble. "Sit. Explain, now." Kai groaned and dropped into the chair opposite him. "There's nothing to explain." "Liar." Derek leaned forward like this was an interrogation scene. "I saw her touch you with her tail, dude. Her tail! That's intimate for Vulpine, right? Or at least not normal co-worker behavior." Kai ran both hands down his face. "Please lower your voice." "Absolutely not," Derek said far too loudly. "Tell me what happened before I make up my own version where you said something stupid." Kai hesitated. Derek squinted. "You said something stupid, didn't you?" Kai slumped in defeat and stared at the table like it might open and swallow him. "Okay, listen. She was lifting this box, and it was... Look, the angle was..." Derek's eyebrows rose with dangerous interest. "Oh no, continue." Kai exhaled sharply. "She bent down to grab the crate, and, without meaning to, I kind of got an eyeful." Derek was already wheezing. "And I might have said something," Kai finished weakly. "What?" Derek demanded between laughs. "Exactly did you say?" Kai lowered his voice to a mortified whisper. "And miss this view?" Derek doubled over, practically sliding out of his chair. The pretzel bag fell to the floor as he slapped the table in hysterics, loud enough that two workers at the vending machine paused to stare. Kai flicked a bald napkin at him. "Stop dying, please." Derek gasped. "You said that out loud?" "It wasn't supposed to be out loud," Kai hissed. "It just slipped out of my head." "That's not a slip, that's a confession." Derek wiped his eyes. "And she heard it?" "Apparently yes, because she turned around and gave me this look, like she'd just unlocked DLC content of my humiliation." Derek sat back, triumphantly smug. "And then?" Kai tried not to relive it, but the memory came back in full HD anyway. "She walked past me and her tail brushed my arm." Derek froze mid-chew, new seriousness settling in. "Okay, hold up. Her tail touched you?" Kai nodded. "Yeah, I mean, it was light, but..." "That's flirting." Kai blinked. "What?" "It's flirting," Derek repeated firmly. "Vulpine tail contact is intentional 99% of the time. They don't just swish willy-nilly into people. It's like a signal, like a wink, but warmer." Kai stared at him. "Why do you know this?" "I dated a Vulpine in trade school," Derek said. "You know this." "You said she emotionally destroyed you." "She did, but she also taught me stuff." Derek pointed at him dramatically, "including how to tell when a Vulpine is into someone." Kai leaned back, pulse flickering again. "Okay, but she might just be teasing." "Duh, she is. That's how they flirt." Kai ran a hand through his hair. "Derek, She's my coworker. So? So there's, like, rules. So break room dates are off limits. Asking her to grab dinner after shift isn't. Derek took a sip of his drink like this was simple math. You like her. She definitely likes messing with you. Just ask her out. Kai stared at him. That's your big advice? Yup. That's terrible advice. It's amazing advice, Derek countered. Plus, you're charming in that accidentally fell into a situation way. Women love that. Kai snorted. I'm not asking her out. You are, Derek corrected. Because if you don't, she's going to keep flirting harder until you spontaneously combust. Kai wanted to argue, but the image of Vesa turning around slowly, voice low and amused, careful, human, hit him square in the chest again. Yeah, he was in danger. Derek leaned closer. Look, Kai, she didn't get mad. She didn't avoid you. She gave you the equivalent of a fox girl smirk, and then brushed you with her tail like she was claiming a receipt. Kai groaned. Please never say that sentence again. Derek grinned. You're welcome. The break room door opened then, letting in a burst of warehouse noise. And Vesa herself, stepping in with her datapad tucked under one arm, ears perked in that casual, sweeping way that meant she was assessing the entire room without even looking directly at anyone. Kai froze. Derek saw the panic instantly and whispered, Act natural. Kai whispered back, horrified, I don't know how. Vesa spotted them. A slow, knowing smile curved her mouth before she walked to the fridge, tail swaying with suspiciously deliberate rhythm. Kai tried desperately to look normal, but every muscle in his body had declared mutiny. She opened the fridge, retrieved a chilled drink, and, without turning, said lightly, Talking about me again? Derek choked on his pretzel dust. Kai nearly died on the spot. No. She closed the fridge door with her hip and glanced over her shoulder, amused. Her eyes landed on Kai, warm and teasing, and something softer flickered beneath it, so quick he might have imagined it. Then she walked out, drink in hand, tail brushing the doorway as she disappeared into the noise of the warehouse. The moment she was gone, Derek grabbed Kai's arm. You are, he whispered urgently, so asking her out after shift. Kai stared at the doorway, heart pounding. I might be, he admitted. Derek fist-pumped. Yes. Kai headed back onto the warehouse floor with a steadier stride than before. Maybe it was the break. Maybe it was Derek's relentless coaching. Or maybe he was finally admitting to himself that he liked the way Vesa toyed with him. Whatever the reason, something in him had clicked into place. He wasn't scared of her teasing anymore. He wanted to match it. He didn't have to wait long. Vesa was perched on the edge of a low pallet near their workstation, sipping her drink and tapping at her datapad with a quick flick of her thumb. Her ears swiveled toward him before she even looked up, alert and expressive, and a lazy smile curved her mouth when her gaze finally lifted to meet his. Well, she said, drawing the word out like she was assessing him, look who survived the break room interrogation. He stopped in front of her, crossing his arms lightly. I'll have you know, I told Derek every embarrassing detail. She blinked, surprised. You volunteered that information? Kai shrugged with a half grin. Why not? It's not like you didn't hear me. Her tail flicked once in amusement. You humans are bold. And you Vulpines are dramatic. Her ears perked, then angled back playfully. Dramatic? Oh, absolutely. The whole slow turn, the scandalized gasp, the whispered, careful, human. He mimicked the tone, light, teasing, almost purring. You enjoy the theatrics? Vesa's smile faltered into a short, startled breath, more surprise than embarrassment, before she covered it with a mock glare. You're awfully confident today. Just calling it like I see it. She hopped off the pallet, stepping slightly too close, forcing him to tilt his chin down a little to keep their eyes locked. Careful, she murmured. I bite. He didn't retreat. Instead, he leaned in just enough to return her earlier tone. So do I. Her tail stilled. Then it swayed again, more slowly this time, brushing against his hip before curling lightly along his side. Not a full stroke, just a test. A flicker of touch, a question. Kai didn't freeze. Instead, he reached out and gently flicked one of her ears with the tip of his finger. Not hard, not rude, just enough to say, two can play this game. Vessa's breath caught sharply, ears shooting straight up. She whipped her head toward him in stunned offense that wasn't real at all. Did you just... Kai kept his best, innocent expression. Oh, sorry. Was that not allowed? I thought we were doing theatrical gestures. You touched my ear, she said, voice soft but incredulous. You touched my entire arm, with your tail. That's different. How? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and somehow turned a shade warmer across her cheeks. See? He teased, stepping past her to the crate stack. Dramatic. Her tail smacked his calf on the way by. He laughed, genuine and unrestrained, and her ears twitched in flustered indignation. He bent to pick up a box, not missing the way she drifted closer, watching him with narrowed eyes like she was reassessing a puzzle she thought she'd already solved. As he lifted it onto the conveyor, she cleared her throat. So, you're feeling bold today. Is that a problem? No, she admitted begrudgingly. Just unexpected. He turned slightly, enough to catch the faint, lingering blush brushing across the golden fur at her cheekbones. You surprised me earlier. Seems fair I return the favor. Her tail swayed behind her, slow and thoughtful this time. I didn't think humans flirted like that. Kai chuckled. So, we're flirting now? Vessa didn't respond, but he could see the warmth under her cheeks. Her fingers brushed his when she took the box. Not by accident. You keep talking like that, she murmured. You're going to start rumors. Derek already thinks we're secretly dating. She almost dropped the crate. What? He saw the tail thing. Her ears shot straight up. It wasn't, I did, but it wasn't, well, maybe it was. Oh, stars, she muttered, flustered in a way he had never seen on her before. Kai moved past her before she could recover enough to strike back, tossing over his shoulder. You started it. Behind him, she sputtered, then laughed, then said something in her native tongue that sounded suspiciously like a compliment disguised as an insult. It echoed in the warehouse air, lingering, like a spark between them. And for the first time that day, Kai knew exactly what he was doing. The rest of the shift moved with a strange new rhythm. Lighter, charged, threaded with an awareness Kai could feel even when Vessa wasn't directly beside him. They worked smoothly, trading crates back and forth, exchanging glances that lingered longer than strictly necessary, their banter weaving between tasks like a second job neither of them minded doing. At one point, Vessa climbed halfway up a shelf ladder to scan a misplaced package. Kai steadied the ladder automatically, hands braced on the side rails. You don't have to hold it, she called down. He smirked up at her. What, and risk you falling dramatically just to prove a point? She stuck her tongue out at him. I don't fall. Everyone falls. Not me. As if the universe wanted to contribute, the ladder wobbled just enough to make her knees buckle. She froze, ears snapping flat for a split second before she regained her balance. Kai looked up with a raised brow. Don't, she warned. He grinned. Didn't say anything. You thought something. Oh, absolutely. Her laugh drifted down to him, warm and a little embarrassed. When she descended, her tail brushed subtly against his shoulder in what he was pretty sure was gratitude disguised as casual movement. Or maybe she liked giving him heart palpitations. Hard to tell. They moved on to processing returns, a mindless task that left too much room for talking. Vesa perched on a crate beside him, swinging her legs lightly. "So," she said, stretching the word like taffy, "is Bold Kai a permanent upgrade?" "Maybe." He taped a box with unnecessary precision. "Depends on how much dramatic energy the warehouse can handle." "I can handle it," she said confidently. "You sure? You blushed pretty hard earlier." Her heel paused mid-swing, tapping lightly against the crate. "I did not." "You did." "That was heat from lifting," she said, lifting her chin indignantly. Kai tipped his head. "So, lifting that box flustered you more than me calling it a nice view? Interesting." She nearly choked. "You!" Her tail puffed slightly, the fur fluffing in a way he hadn't seen before. She caught herself, straightened her posture, and tried desperately to look composed. "You're very smug today." "You like it?" She huffed, tail curling around her side as if to shield herself from the accusation. "You shouldn't say things like that unless you're ready for me to prove you wrong." He leaned a forearm on the crate, meeting her gaze steadily. "So prove it." Her ears froze, her cheeks warmed again, and Kai felt a rush of victory blooming through him. Playful, electric, something between flirtation and challenge. He hadn't expected to win even a single round with her. Now he'd caught her twice. Vesa recovered quickly, narrowing her eyes in mock suspicion. "You're dangerous." "Me?" he scoffed. "You're the one weaponizing tail contact." She tilted her head. "Does it work?" "Maybe." "Only maybe?" Kai closed the gap between them just slightly. Not enough to touch, but enough that the air felt charged again. "It works," he murmured, "but don't let it go to your head." Her breath slowed. Her tail flicked, once, twice, before sweeping lightly along his thigh in a slow, deliberate motion that felt almost like a promise. Kai's pulse stuttered, but his smile came easy. "See? Dramatic." Vesa swatted his arm, tail now swishing behind her in flustered annoyance. "Stop turning my own lines on me." "You make it too easy. And you're impossible. You already said that today. And it's still true." They stared at each other, smiling, competitive, warm. Then a crate toppled off a nearby stack, crashing loudly and making both of them jump. Vesa's tail floofed in alarm. Kai barked a laugh that he couldn't stop even if he tried. "Oh, shut up," she said, slapping his arm again as she hopped off the crate. "You're very jumpy for someone who doesn't fall." She pointed a finger at him. "If you repeat that to anyone, I will hide your time card so you never clock out on time again." "That's cruel. That's vulpine." They were still bickering when Derek passed by with a pallet jack, eyeing them like someone watching a nature documentary. He muttered, "Yep, this is happening," as he rolled away. Vesa blinked at Kai. "What does that mean?" "No idea," Kai lied. She narrowed her eyes like she absolutely did not believe him, then softened with a small smile. "You know, you're easier to talk to when you're not terrified I'll eat you." "Were you planning to?" "Maybe a nibble." She shrugged. "Depends on if you keep being cute." Kai nearly dropped the scanner. Vesa didn't give him time to process it. She spun on her heel, tail brushing his hip again in a slow glide before she headed toward her next task. "Come on, human. You're slow today." "Right behind you," he said, his voice steadier than his heartbeat. As he followed, he caught Derek looking at him from across the aisle, mouthing something triumphant and obscene. Kai ignored him. Because now the banter wasn't just teasing, It was building toward something. Something neither of them was pretending to avoid anymore. By the time the end of shift crept close, the warehouse had settled into that exhausted haze where everyone counted minutes instead of crates. The lights seemed dimmer, the conveyor belts slower, the hum of machinery deeper. Kai worked through the last pallets with a rhythm that was mostly muscle memory now, but every so often he caught himself glancing toward Vesa, only to find she was already looking at him. There was an unspoken thing between them now, a quiet, simmering tension that hadn't been there that morning, woven into every passing glance and accidental brush of hands as they swapped crates. Kai lifted a box onto the scale and said casually, "You look tired." Vesa scoffed. "I'm fine. You've done double my workload today." "That's because you humans take forever to peel tape." He grinned. "Incorrect. I'm efficient. You're just competitive." She opened her mouth to argue, eyes bright with mischief, then paused, watching him a little longer than usual. Her tail swayed slowly behind her, a thoughtful rhythm he was beginning to recognize as her tell. "What?" she asked, catching his stare. He shrugged. "Just thinking." "Dangerous." "For you?" "For everyone," she said, hopping off the pallet. "What are you thinking?" Kai closed the distance between them with a measured calm that surprised even him. "That you've been messing with me all day." She tilted her head, ears perked. "Maybe. And earlier I said you were dramatic." "Definitely." He folded his arms lightly. "So you can take it, but can you handle it when someone teases you back?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed her eyes. Small, but real. Her ears hesitated mid-swivel, betraying her even as she smirked. "I can handle anything you throw at me." "Is that so?" "Mm-hmm." Kai walked past her to grab another crate, deliberately brushing her arm with his. The contact was small, nothing anyone else would notice, but he felt her breath shift. Felt the way she stilled just slightly, caught off guard. "Careful, Vesa," he said, using her own line against her again, quiet and low. "I hear better than you think." Her tail curled forward instinctively, wrapping lightly around his hip for a split second before she yanked it back like she hadn't meant to do it. "Kai," she said softly, blinking hard. "You." He turned, box in hand. "You okay?" She shook herself out of it, clearing her throat. "Fine. Just didn't expect you to be so bold today. Would you prefer I go back to stammering?" "No," she said immediately. The word landed between them like a dropped crate. A forklift rumbled by, the driver shouting something about end-of-shift logs, but neither of them moved. Vesa stepped closer, her arms crossing but not defensively, more like she needed somewhere to put them. "You know," she said, gaze narrowing in a softer way now, "you keep surprising me." "Good," he said. "You deserve that." Her ears twitched upward, startled and flattered all at once. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I don't know how to tease you after something like that," she said, flustered. "And I'm supposed to be the one in control here." "You're not," he said simply. Her breath caught, her tail stilled, her eyes widened, an entire cascade of reactions she didn't have time to hide. "Kai." He wasn't sure what she planned to say next, whether she intended another witty comeback or something honest, but they were interrupted before the moment could break open. Derek appeared from the aisle with a stack of scanned tags in hand, panting dramatically. "I swear, if I have to carry one more mislabeled pallet, I'm—" He stopped dead when he saw the two of them standing closer than coworkers usually did. His eyes widened. "Oh. Oh ho. Okay then. Should I leave? Blink twice if you need help." Vesa let out a noise that could only be described as a strangled, mortified growl. "Derek." "Yes, ma'am." He saluted sloppily and vanished behind the machine bay. Kai sighed. "He's not subtle." "No," she muttered. "He's really not." The tension didn't vanish, though. If anything, it sharpened, thicker now, heavier in the air between them, nudging the moment toward something decisive. Vesa shifted her weight, eyes darting to the side before returning to him. "So, about earlier. Which part?" "All of it," she said, ears slowly dipping. "The flirting, the teasing, the tail stuff." Kai hid a smile. "I liked the tail stuff." She looked like she might combust. "You can't just say that." "I can if it's true." Her tail twitched violently. "Kai, you're going to make this impossible." "What's impossible?" "Focusing," she muttered. "We're almost done with shift." "That's not the kind of focusing I meant." He let the silence stretch, just long enough to make her shift her weight nervously, before he stepped closer, box forgotten at his feet. "Vesa." She looked up, eyes searching. "You want to grab dinner with me?" he asked. Her ears shot up so fast they made a tiny flicking sound. "Dinner?" "Yeah," he said, calm but steady. "After our shift, just the two of us." She stared, stunned, not because she hadn't expected it, he realized, but because she had hoped for it. A slow smile spread over her lips, one that wasn't mischievous or teasing or sly, something softer. "Yeah," she said, her voice gentle. "Yeah, I'd like that." Kai's chest warmed in a way he wasn't expecting. "Cool," he said quietly. "Cool," she echoed, tail curling in a pleased little arc behind her. For a moment, they simply stood there, two exhausted warehouse workers surrounded by crates and humming equipment, sharing a moment that felt far too good for a space this industrial. Then Vesa reached out, flicked the sleeve of his uniform with her fingers, and murmured, "Careful, human. You ask me out like that again, and I might actually fall for you." Kai grinned. That's the plan. The teasing eased into something quieter after that, still present, still warm, but gentler around the edges, like neither of them wanted to break whatever new balance had settled between them. They worked through the remaining pallets with the steady fatigue that always hit in the last hour of shift, shoulders getting heavier, steps slower, conversation drifting into soft comments about mislabeled boxes and malfunctioning scanners. Every now and then, Kai caught Vesa glancing at him in his peripheral vision, small, thoughtful looks that flicked away the moment he turned his head. Not playful, not predatory, curious. He kept finding himself doing the same, but neither of them pushed it. Not now. Not when the day was winding down and the exhaustion of real labor had worn off the sharper edges of their banter. Instead, they fell into a comfortable rhythm, one where her tail would drift close as they passed each other, or where his hand might brush hers when exchanging crates, but neither of them commented on it. For once, silence wasn't awkward. It was easy. By the time the shift whistle sounded, signaling clock out, the entire warehouse let out a collective groan of relief. Workers stretched, rubbed sore shoulders, muttered curses at the universe. Kai set down the last empty pallet with a heavy exhale and rolled his wrist, listening to it pop. Across the aisle, Derek caught his eye. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He just nodded once. Firm, exaggerated, encouraging. The kind of nod that meant, "Do it. Now. Before you lose your nerve." Kai took a breath through his nose, letting the cool warehouse air settle into his lungs. His heart wasn't hammering. He wasn't terrified. More like focused. A little warm in the chest. A little nervous in a good way. He wiped his palms on his uniform pants, mostly out of habit, and headed toward Vesa. She was stretching her arms up over her head, tail arcing behind her as she worked out the stiffness in her shoulders. When she dropped her hands and noticed him approaching, her ears perked slightly. "End of shift miracles," she sighed. "I swear, if I had to move one more crate today, I was going to file a formal complaint with Gravity." Kai snorted. "Gravity's pretty consistent. Management, though? I'd believe they're out to get us." Bold claim. She grabbed her jacket from the pallet edge. But accurate. He stopped beside her, close enough that he could smell the faint citrus from her earlier drink still clinging to her hair. Not too close, not invading her space. Just there. "Long day?" he asked. "Long week," she corrected, rolling her neck until it cracked. "Though today was nice, mostly." She gave him a sideways look, soft but amused. "You were entertaining." "Entertaining, huh? That's a new performance review category." "I'll fill out a form," she promised dryly. He laughed, then let the sound fade naturally. There was a moment here, small and fragile, sitting right between them. He could feel it settle in his chest, waiting. Vesa must have sensed it too, because she stilled, tail lowering to a gentle curve behind her. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. "Kai?" she asked quietly. "What's on? Your mind?" He exhaled once, steady and calm. "Dinner." She blinked. "Dinner?" "Yeah." His voice stayed relaxed, conversational, not forced, not rushed. "With me. Tonight, after shift, if you want to." There was a heartbeat of silence. Vesa's ears lifted in surprise. Not a dramatic flick, just a soft rise, like she wasn't expecting the question but wasn't opposed to it either. Her eyes widened before narrowing slightly. Not in suspicion, but in something thoughtful and warm. "You're asking me out?" she said. He nodded. "I am." Another pause, but this one felt different, sharper, pulling gently on something already forming between them. Then Vesa smiled. Not her teasing grin, not her mischievous smirk. Something real, small, and honest. "I'd like that," she said softly. Relief, bright and quiet, bloomed in Kai's chest. "Yeah?" he asked, even though he didn't need the confirmation. "Yeah," she repeated, tail giving a slow, pleased sway. "Dinner sounds really nice." Kai returned her smile, smaller but steady. "Good," he said. "I know a place a few blocks over. Still open this late." "Perfect." She slipped her jacket on, brushing a bit of warehouse dust from the sleeve. "Just give me a minute to grab my things." "Sure." As she started toward the lockers, she paused, turning back over her shoulder. "And Kai?" Her ears dipped a little, shy in a way he hadn't seen from her until now. "I'm glad you asked." He felt his throat warm. "Me too." She disappeared around the corner, tail swaying in a soft arc. Derek materialized beside him like an overexcited poltergeist. "Well?" he demanded in a harsh whisper. "Did she—" Kai didn't look away from the direction she'd gone. "She said yes." Derek made a victorious sound that definitely wasn't human. Kai just breathed, letting the moment settle. "Dinner. With Vesa." "Yeah." He was ready for whatever came next. They walked out of the warehouse side by side, the evening air settling cool and quiet around them. Most of the crew filtered toward the parking lot in noisy clusters, but Kai and Vesa drifted a little slower, a little apart, as if the shift hadn't really ended for them yet, just changed shape. Vesa tucked her hands into her jacket pockets, ears flicking softly at the distant hum of traffic. "So," she said, glancing up at him, "are you taking me somewhere fancy?" Kai laughed. "Not unless you consider reasonably clean and not closing for another hour fancy." She grinned, sharp and amused. "Perfect. I hate fancy." He nudged her shoulder lightly. "You? Miss Dramatic Entrance? Miss Teasing Banter? Miss Tail Flirt? Her ears snapped back in flustered betrayal. We are not calling it that. Too late. She elbowed him, but she was smiling. Keep it up and I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. Good. Then I'll pretend to check my bank balance and cry. A soft laugh slipped out of her, warm and genuine, and she bumped her shoulder against his again, a gentler version of her usual playful antics. The tension between them felt easier now, threaded with anticipation instead of nerves. They walked 2 blocks before reaching the small corner restaurant. Soft lights glowed through the windows, and the scent of spices drifted out each time someone opened the door. Vesa paused outside, tilting her head. It smells good. It is. Kai held the door for her. She stepped inside, brushing past him, her tail flicking lightly against his leg, a touch that felt intentional in a way she didn't call attention to. He didn't either, but the warmth spread anyway. They took a booth near the window. The dim lighting softened Vesa's features, highlighting the gentle amber of her eyes and the faint shimmer of fur along her ears. When she pulled off her jacket, her shoulders relaxed, as if she could finally shed the weight of the day. So, she said, resting her elbows lightly on the table. How long were you planning this? Kai blinked. Planning what? This. She gestured between them. Dinner, asking me out. The whole thing. He considered lying, then decided she'd smell dishonesty a mile away. Honestly, I wasn't planning anything. I thought I'd wait until, I don't know, some perfect moment. And today wasn't perfect. It was a mess. He laughed softly. But it was a good mess. Her smile softened. I like that answer. The server arrived, took their drink order, and left them again in the comfortable hush of shared space. Vesa tapped her clawed nail lightly against the edge of her menu. I should warn you, she said. I eat a lot. Good, he said. I do too. And I like spicy food. That tracks. And wait, what is that supposed to mean? He smirked. You have big spicy gremlin energy. Her ears shot up. Spicy what? Gremlin, he repeated. She stared at him, mouth parting in outrage before she dissolved into laughter. You're lucky I like you. His heart did an unhelpful, traitorous flip. I like you too. The way she stilled at that, just for a heartbeat, told him the words meant more than he intended to admit out loud. Her tail curled around the side of the booth, slow and pleased. When their food arrived, they ate and talked in long stretches, weaving stories about co-workers, families, embarrassing past jobs. Vesa animated everything, hands moving, ears twitching, tail swaying with every shift of emotion. Kai found himself watching her more than his plate, caught not by anything she said specifically, but by the way she said it. Bright, bold, unfiltered. At one point she leaned in, lowering her voice. So, the thing that happened earlier. Kai swallowed. Which thing? She rolled her eyes. The compliment you didn't mean to say out loud. Oh, he said. That. Yes, that. Her eyes shimmered with something playful and something curious. You really liked the view? He didn't look away. Yeah, I did. Her ears dipped, cheeks warming in a shade that he knew, instinctively, she didn't let many people see. You shouldn't just say things like that. Why not? Because... She hesitated, searching for the right phrasing. Because it makes me feel things. Kai smiled, softer this time. Is that bad? No, she said quietly. Just unexpected. They finished dinner slowly, neither of them wanting the evening to end too soon. When they finally stepped back outside, the air was cooler, and the nightlights cast a soft glow along the street. Vesa walked beside him, hands in her pockets again, tail brushing lightly against his coat every few steps, like she hadn't decided whether to be subtle or bold, and was accidentally doing both. Kai slid his hands into his pockets too, breath forming a mist. "Thanks for coming with me tonight." "Thanks for asking." She nudged him gently with her shoulder. "You surprised me today." "Good surprise or bad surprise?" "Good," she said, glancing up at him with a slow-building smile. "Very good." They reached the corner where their paths split, her heading toward the transit stop, him toward the employee lot. She stopped, turning slightly to face him. "So," she said, voice softer, "I had a nice time." "Me too." A beat, then she stepped closer, her ears angled shyly forward, tail curling at the tip. "Kai?" "Yeah?" She rose onto her toes and kissed him. Soft, warm, hesitant, like she was testing the shape of him against her. His heart stilled, then surged upward into his throat. He kissed her back gently, mindful of her pace, the closeness, the way her hands hovered like she wasn't sure whether to touch him yet. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed gold, her ears tipped down just slightly. "That okay?" she murmured. He exhaled, steady and certain. "Yeah, very." Vesa took one small step back, smiling in a way that wrapped around his ribs and stayed there. "Good night, Kai." "Good night, Vesa." She turned toward the station, tail swaying softly behind her. And Kai just stood there a moment longer, realizing, with a quiet, settling certainty, that this wasn't going to be a one-time thing. Not even close. Kai walked into work the next afternoon, feeling lighter than the warehouse air had any right to allow. A full night's sleep hadn't dimmed anything. Vesa's kiss still echoed in his mind like a warm pulse, lingering just under the skin. He'd replayed it a few times on the commute in, then forced himself to stop so he wouldn't walk straight into a loading dock out of sheer distraction. Derek was already in the break room, leaning halfway across the counter, shoveling cereal into his mouth like he hadn't eaten in days. He spotted Kai, froze, and slowly lowered the spoon. "Well?" Derek demanded. Kai barely had time to open his locker before Derek slammed the cereal bowl down. No way. You don't get to walk in here with that smug face and not explain." Kai tried to hide the smile, tugging at his mouth. Failed. "It went well." Derek stared. "Define well. Be specific. I require emotional detail." Kai leaned on the locker door. "We talked. We ate. We had a good time." Derek narrowed his eyes. And? Kai shrugged casually. "She kissed me." The cereal bowl hit the counter with a loud clatter. "What?" Derek grabbed Kai by both shoulders like he was trying to keep the universe from collapsing. "She kissed you? The fox woman kissed you? With her actual face?" Kai laughed. "That's usually how kissing works." Derek shook him. "Do you hear yourself right now? Derek, calm down." "I absolutely will not," he sputtered, pacing in frantic circles. "Do you understand what this means? This is monumental. This is interspecies romance. This is folklore. This is... Oh my God, Kai, you kissed a fox woman." Kai lifted his hands. "Technically, she kissed me." "Even worse." Kai blinked. "Why is that worse?" "Because it means she took initiative," Derek hissed. "Vulpines don't take initiative unless they're serious. They flirt all day long, sure, tail flicks, ear perks, snarky heaven-sent banter. But kisses? That's intentional. That's foreboding. That's practically a vow." Kai rubbed the bridge of his nose. "You're being dramatic." "I am being accurate," Derek corrected, pointing at him with a trembling finger. "You better watch yourself. If she starts talking about kits..." Kai frowned. Kits? Kits. Baby foxes, dude. Their word for kids. If she mentions the word kit in any context, you run. Or marry her. Depends on tone. Kai choked on air. She's not going to talk about kids. You don't know that, Derek said, pacing again. One moment they're brushing your arm with their tail, next moment they're naming hypothetical future children and planning a den. The break room door swung open with a soft creak. Vesa walked in. Kai didn't even have time to warn him. Derek went pale. Oh, stars. Vesa paused just inside the doorway, holding her drink, ears perked forward in interest. She tilted her head slowly, tail swaying in an infuriatingly controlled arc. What was that? She asked pleasantly. Derek made a sound somewhere between a wheeze and a dying animal. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Bits, data bits. That's what we were saying. Kai was, organizing his bits, right, Kai? Kai covered his face with his hand, shoulders shaking with laughter. Derek, please stop talking. Vesa's eyes gleamed like she had just been, handed front row seats to her favorite comedy. She stepped farther into the room, leaning one hip against the counter. Kits, she said lightly, tapping her claw against her cup. Interesting conversation to have before clock-in. Derek flailed. No, not like that. Kai he didn't. Oh, stars, please don't eat me. Vesa arched a brow. Why would I eat you? Because I have said words, Derek whispered, collapsing into a chair. Kai finally dropped his hand, laughter spilling out. Vesa, ignore him. He's being weird. I noticed, she said, amused. Then she turned her eyes on Kai, and everything softened around the edges. Her tail flicked forward, brushing his knee as she passed him to grab something from the fridge. Good morning, she murmured, voice sliding warm over the space between them. Morning, Kai said, steadier than he felt. Derek gasped dramatically. Oh my God, they have morning voices. Kai threw a granola bar at him. Vesa stifled a laugh behind her drink, ears twitching in pleased amusement. As she headed back out toward the warehouse floor, she paused in the doorway just long enough for her tail to sweep lightly across Kai's hip. Then she glanced over her shoulder at him with a look that said, We're not done with that conversation. And Kai, smiling helplessly, knew she wasn't wrong. The rest of the shift didn't feel like a shift at all. It moved in a soft, buoyant rhythm. Normal work, same crates, same labels, same machinery, but everything beneath it hummed with something new. Even Vesa worked differently now. Her usual sharp edges were still there, but softened, warmed, threaded with quiet glances and small smiles she didn't bother hiding anymore. Every time Kai walked past her, her tail flicked in his direction, sometimes lightly brushing his arm, sometimes not quite touching, but close enough that he felt the ghost of it anyway. And every time, Kai found himself smiling like an idiot, unable to stop even when he tried. Derek, naturally, noticed everything. Around mid-shift, he sidled up to Kai with a box under one arm, whispering, She is so into you. Kai sighed. Please do not make this a running commentary. No promises, Derek muttered, clearly ecstatic with the loss of boundaries. A few aisles over, Vesa caught Kai's eye, smirked knowingly, and lifted a crate like it weighed nothing. Kai tried not to admire her strength too blatantly. Failed. Miserably. He scanned a label, and she drifted close enough to murmur, Your friend is loud. Tell me about it. I can hear him panicking from 3 aisles away. She leaned in slightly. Is he always like that? Only when he thinks I'm going to ruin my life. And are you? No, Kai said quietly. I think I'm doing something right for once. That made her pause. just briefly, like she wasn't expecting sincerity. Her ears lifted in a soft arc, tail slowing its movement behind her. "Good," she said. "I'd hate to think I was distracting you from your responsibilities." "You absolutely are." She laughed under her breath. "And you absolutely like it." He didn't deny it. The afternoon drifted into evening, the last hour of shift sliding by with surprising ease. They knocked out their final tasks side by side, sometimes talking, sometimes not talking at all, just moving in sync in a way that didn't need explaining. When the final whistle sounded, Vesa stretched her arms overhead with a relieved groan. "I am never lifting another crate again, except tomorrow, because they chained my soul to this job." Kai chuckled. "We'll revolt, start a rebellion." She tapped her chin. "Workers of the warehouse unite?" "Exactly." She grinned, stepping away from the pallet. "I'll start drafting slogans." They walked toward the lockers together, neither in a hurry to split off yet. The hallway was quiet, just the steady hum of old lights and the echo of their boots on the concrete. Vesa's tail brushed against his arm as they walked, lighter than a whisper but unmistakably intentional. She didn't pull away. Kai didn't either. When they reached her locker, she paused, leaning lightly against the metal door. "So," she said, eyes soft with curiosity. "Did you tell him?" Kai blinked. "Tell who what?" "Your friend," she clarified, one ear tilting. "Did you tell him about last night?" He huffed a laugh. "You heard that too?" "Of course," she said, smiling with quiet pride. "I hear everything." "Yeah, I told him." "And he panicked, I assume?" "He did more than panic," Kai said. "He had a full meltdown." Vesa tried not to laugh, but her tail betrayed her, curling in a delighted little arc. "Good. He deserved it." Kai raised a brow. "Deserved?" "For assuming things." She shut her locker and bumped her shoulder against his, and for saying the word "kits" loud enough that I could hear it. She mimicked Derek's horrified voice perfectly. "Kits! Run! Den building!" "Honestly, humans are adorable." Kai groaned, covering his face. "Please don't tease him about that." "I won't." She tapped his wrist with one claw lightly. "Unless he asks for it." "That's actually worse." Her smile softened. "But thank you." "For what?" "For telling him," she said. "For not hiding it." Kai shrugged lightly. "Didn't feel like something I wanted to hide." Her ears dipped in a moment of visible warmth before she straightened again, brushing it off with her usual ease. "Well, if he starts asking about our future den, let me know." Kai laughed. "I'm ignoring you." "No, you're not." And she was right. They reached the point where their routes divided, her toward the transit tunnel, him toward the, employee lot. She stopped, rocking slightly on her heels, tail swaying with a relaxed rhythm Kai hadn't seen before. A content rhythm. "So," she said, "same time tomorrow?" "For work?" "For everything," she said, eyes shining a little. "For us." Kai's chest warmed in a slow, settling way. "Yeah. Same time?" She leaned in, quick, light, and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. It wasn't as bold as last night. It wasn't meant to steal his breath or shock him. It was simple, warm, familiar. "I'll see you tomorrow, human," she murmured, and her tail brushed gently across his waist as she turned to leave. Slow, lingering, unmistakably affectionate. Kai watched her go, unable to stop the smile pulling at his mouth. Yeah, this was only the beginning. Derek was already in the break room the next morning, stirring powdered creamer into his coffee like he was mixing chemicals for a catastrophe. The moment Kai walked in, Derek fixed him with a wide-eyed, haunted stare. "Did she say anything to you last night?" he blurted. Kai blinked. Like what? You know, about future obligations. Kai frowned. She kissed me on the cheek and said goodnight. That's basically a proposal in Vulpine culture, Derek whispered, gripping his cup like it was a lifeline. It's not, Kai said, pinching the bridge of his nose. Please stop reading interspecies dating blogs. They are educational, Derek insisted. Did you know that if she talks about kits? The door swung open. Vesa stepped inside, tail swaying lazily behind her, eyes bright with the kind of mischief that meant someone, somewhere, was about to suffer. She held a drink in one hand and surveyed the room like she already knew everything that had been said. Morning, she chimed. Derek nearly inhaled his coffee. Kai opened his mouth to say something normal, something safe, something that would keep Derek from spontaneous combustion. But Vesa got there first. She leaned back against the counter, took a slow sip of her drink, and said in the most casual voice imaginable, "Kai and I were talking last night, you know." She tapped her chin thoughtfully. "I've decided, when I have my first kit, I'm naming them after Derek." Derek made a sound Kai had never heard from any living thing. Part scream, part gasp, part spiritual detachment from his body. "What?" Derek squeaked, pointing at himself with full-body panic. "Me? Why?" Kai choked. "Vesa," she continued mercilessly. "Oh yes, little Derek, cute, loyal, and perpetually screaming in terror." Kai wheezed. Derek gripped the table like the gravity had tripled. "Kai, she's talking about kits. She's talking about kits." He tugged at Kai's sleeve with trembling fingers. "This is how it starts." Vesa hid her smile behind her cup. "And the second kit," she said brightly, "I think I'll name after Kai. But only if he behaves." Kai pressed both palms to his face. "I'm begging you to stop." "I'm having fun," she replied sweetly. Derek sagged into his chair, muttering prayers to every known pantheon. "I'm not emotionally prepared for this. I didn't stretch. I didn't warm up. I need training. I need warning. I need air." Kai thumped him lightly on the back. "Derek, breathe." Vesa crouched slightly to meet Derek's eye level, ears perked, voice softening just enough to be terrifying. "Relax, I'm joking." Derek stared at her. Blinked. Blinked again. "Joking?" "Of course." Her tail flicked with malicious innocence. "If I were serious, I'd have brought paperwork." Derek collapsed forward onto the table with a groan. "I'm too young for this." Kai shook his head, laughing helplessly. "You did this to yourself." "I did nothing," Derek moaned. "I am but a humble bystander caught in the crossfire of your romance arc." Vesa straightened, brushing imaginary dust from her uniform. "Well, if your arc includes him fainting dramatically, I approve." Derek lifted his head weakly. "Why are you like this?" She shrugged. "Enrichment." Kai snorted. Vesa stepped beside Kai, her shoulder brushing his for just a moment, a small, quiet signal that cut through all the joking. "Ready for the shift?" she asked. "Yeah," he said softly. "You?" She smiled, not mischievous, not teasing, just warm. Always. Together they headed toward the warehouse floor. Behind them, Derek muttered, "If they actually have kits, I'm moving to another planet." Kai nudged Vesa lightly with his elbow. "You're enjoying this too much." "Absolutely," she said. "Your friend is wonderfully dramatic, like a tiny prey animal with anxiety. He's going to need therapy. I'll send him a fruit basket." "You're impossible," Kai said, laughing. "And you," she replied, bumping her shoulder against his, "are stuck with me now." Kai didn't argue, because walking beside her, listening to her laugh softly under her breath, watching the lazy glide of her tail, he knew exactly what that meant. Not something scary, not something rushed, not something he wasn't ready for. Just something good. Something that felt like the start of a life he hadn't known he wanted, until she stepped into it. When they reached the aisle where their shift began, Vesa tugged gently at the sleeve of his uniform to get his attention. "Kai?" He paused. She rose onto her toes and kissed his cheek. Light, sweet, comfortable. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" "For choosing me," she said simply. His chest tightened in the best way possible. "Yeah," he said, smiling. "Every time." She grinned, soft but glowing, and turned toward the day's first stack of crates. Kai followed, knowing with quiet certainty. This story wasn't ending. It was just beginning.